kitchen. And today I am so excited to have a special guest, Rachel, Rachelle Heinemann, who is a psychotherapist in Brooklyn. And she specializes in eating disorders, but also in anxiety and depression, which, hey, we've been talking about that a lot lately. Thank you so much, Rachelle, for joining us.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
And I'm excited to have you. And this topic is particularly important right now because you're about to have a baby.
I am. We are at the finish line.
Yeah, and what a time to be at the finish line.
Yes, you can say that.
Yeah, keeping it positive.
Absolutely. The only way to do it.
Yeah, so today we're talking about maintaining friendships through motherhood. And this is usually it's a really good topic. Right now, it's even more important to talk about because friendships right now and maintaining friendships, it needs so much more intention. And and it's hard, we're really tired, and we'll tackle this from two angles, from the normal angle and then from the lockdown angle, just to make it a little bit more timeless. But it's really important to have your mom tribe around you when you're navigating the new stuff that comes with motherhood. And that can be difficult. It can be difficult to stay in contact with people when you've made that transition from not parent to parent. Sometimes friendships no longer suit you or no longer suit the other side, and that can be really difficult.
Absolutely. I mean, this kind of applies to all stages in life where we either change our values or interests or whatever's going on, and our friendships or who we decide to hang out with just kind of logistically change. It's very interesting how people tend to kind of like group together or separate. People can be friends for forever and then kind of drift apart once either one is in a relationship or one becomes a mother, and then they kind of just, their values change. So it's important to align ourselves with people who share interests, even just day-to-day activities, and our values that share our values, and to kind of surround ourselves with those kinds of people. So that, can just be obviously during normal times when we go to the park, just kind of hanging out with people at the park and getting to know other women in the community, and just kind of like, starting relationships like that is more of just kind of keeping the tribe, if you will, alive.
Right. And there are different ways to do that. And right now, Facebook is kind of a double-edged sword because you have the mommy groups on Facebook. And so there can be, that can be a way to develop valuable connection. But connection online, when it's only online, is not generally that valuable. And we always have to remember that when you ask for advice, it's going to be coming from different people with, as you mentioned, different values. We all have different values. And so it's important to remember what yours are when you're reading other people's comments, other people's advice, and other people's experience. Use Facebook for what it is. Definitely, if you're involved, then join some mommy groups in order to get that connection. But it's so important to try to develop that outside of social media as well, just so that you can really isolate the group of people who you feel support you, and maintain those friendships in more IRL ways in real life.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it does get tricky though, because even if you are friends with someone and you're video chatting or on the phone, it's definitely not the same as in person. And right now we're just going to have to take what we can get. So to understand that there is, let's say, the text level, and then you go up to chatting on the phone level and a video, but maybe a video is just a little bit better than texting if we're wanting to feel connected with someone.
Right. It's true, because people put on their best faces, and when you're friends with someone in person in real life, you get to see the other aspects of them. And that's important for both sides of that conversation. It's important for you as the new mom to see that other people also have their imperfections.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and you get a wider view on other people's lives, and they get a wider view on your life, which makes for a more meaningful connection.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes what happens with social media is that you only see one side. And so that can be so tricky in terms of, even just comparing or trying to match ourselves up with, oh, that's what their life looks like. That's what they're quarantining. Like, oh, they have an activity for their kids. I didn't do that. Like my kids barely ate breakfast. And so that can get really tricky. Whereas, if let's say you're at the stage where you're just looking for more information on something, I don't know, let's say if you're toilet training a kid and you have no idea what to do, to learn more information and to gather that information. But once it becomes this thing that's stressful and, oh, I should be doing it that way, maybe it's time to kind of like shut down at that point and kind of trust
Right.
yourself. Sometimes we do have to trust ourselves.
Right. That's true. And especially when you're talking about controversial issues, which new motherhood is rife with controversial issues. Do you breastfeed or bottle feed? Do you sleep train? Um, do you send them to daycare, or do you keep them at home? Every decision you make has a million books on it, and
Yeah.
everyone's got an opinion. And it's also important to remember that just because you respect someone doesn't mean that they have all of the answers for all of the stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. And also
Right.
understanding that every individual has different needs and desires and preferences, and mine are never going to be the same as somebody else's. So my neighbor can tell me that this is the only way to do it. This is the best school. This is the only way to breastfeed, or this is the reason why you should. But if those are not working for you, or they just don't fit into your lifestyle or your preferences, then that's not right for you.
Right. And it's so important to remember the limits on our friendships. Just because you're friends with someone doesn't mean they know every aspect of you and can advise you based on your needs and your experiences and your values. So,
Yeah.
and it can be really tricky to fall into that trap on Facebook. And I mean, with the medical questions, also people posting pictures of pictures of things, or what do I do? My child isn't growing enough. And the thing is that we have to remember where the boundaries on friendships ends. It's one thing to say, hey, have you seen this before? But it's another thing to accept medical advice and treat your child based on medical advice that you've gotten on social media. So I think that's an important point to bring up as well. It's difficult. I mean, it's difficult when you're a new mom and you're tired. You don't have that energy to dedicate towards friendships. You don't have that energy to drag your child around to 5 different doctors to figure out what is that rash.
Yeah.
And social media it's easy to watch out. Yeah.
Something that, this is more of a personal kind of way that I go about it is once I'm kind of feeling tired about it, or I realize it's just not working. I have to put aside all of the things that I feel like I should be doing, like all of the lists that I need to accomplish or all the people that I wanted to contact. Sometimes we just have to take care of ourselves. And even if that means kind of taking a step back from people, if it means taking a step forward with people, whatever it is, but just really honor what our bodies are telling us or what our minds are telling us. And if that means just taking a nap, that's what we do.
Right. Right. Even if it's off schedule.
Oh, of course, especially when it's off schedule.
Yes.
It's embracing the
Yeah.
imperfections.
It's
Um,
true.
yeah,
It's
but I
true.
think that there's also something to be said for at the end of the day or the week or the month, will we kind of be energized by pushing ourselves to reach out to people, or will we be more exhausted? So
Yes.
kind of similar to some other activities, say if someone gets some sort of boost of energy from doing yoga, then maybe that's the kind of thing where they do push themselves to do a little bit more. But if they will just feel more resentful or more exhausted, then maybe not. So we have to kind of think
Right.
about reaching out to other people in the same way.
That's so true. And we were talking before we started recording. I'm making up the term Zoom fatigue, and
It's a
I
great
think that
term.
yeah, it's what a lot of us are experiencing right now.
Yeah.
Whether it's Facebook Live or just actual Zoom or FaceTime, whatever it is, we're tired of communicating through media. And also, once the kids go down to sleep, you've had a full day of interacting. And you just for me, I just want to sit down on the couch and watch something funny
Yeah.
and have a piece of cheesecake or something. But
That
I
sounds
don't
lovely.
want to I know, doesn't it? I don't want to get on a Zoom call. I don't want to stare at the screen to actively interact with people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and then you have to know yourself. If that's the kind of thing that it doesn't work for you, you don't do it. If it's the kind of thing where it's just burning your eyes because you've been working and managing some kids at the same time, and you have a whole ton of housework to do, maybe getting on the phone is better while you do the dishes.
Right.
But maybe that day is just turn off your phone, put it away, forget it exists.
Yeah, I really need to do that. Thanks for the advice. You can invoice me. That was really valuable for me to hear. Turn off the
I'll
phone.
just charge a piece of cheesecake.
I will gladly send it. I actually make a very good cheesecake. So, so here's the thing. Another aspect that we were just chatting about is passive social interaction. That
Mhm.
during a normal day in your normal life, even with new motherhood, you're going to the store, you're going to the park, you're going various places where you have passive social interactions with people. You have just a conversation here and there, and you could just ask someone, they're picking up something at the supermarket, and you can say, hey, what do you plan to make with that? Maybe you're not that outgoing. I totally am. But
Oh, all
um,
the time.
yeah, it's like, just,
That's where
whatever
all my
you.
recipes are from.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, then we have that in common. But I understand some people they're not that outgoing, but still you have the exchange of smiles. You have,
Yeah,
you sneeze and someone says, bless you. The little small social interactions that happen on a daily basis in normal life, we're not getting that right now.
yeah,
And a lot of times when you have a new baby, even when you're not on lockdown for a global pandemic, that's kind of redundant anyway, because of a pandemic, sometimes you can get very isolated. Sometimes even there are certain cultures who say that 30, 40, 60 days after you have a baby, you just stay home. And if that resonates with you, even if you're not part of one of those cultures, that's fine. You do what you have to do. But it's important to recognize that you are missing out on those valuable moments. And you may want to take steps in order to make sure that you reach out to people for that interaction.
absolutely. Yeah. And again, that kind of just goes according to what you feel like would be helpful. So if it's texting some people or getting on the phone or a video, whatever works for you, especially in these times where we can't really do the in-person thing. That's just a personal preference. For some people who it just feels so overwhelming, even just going in, and again, social media is very tricky, but going on a group and reading that other people are either experiencing the same thing or they're just out there and alive and talking is comforting. Something that I've seen, and this is depending on the level of isolation that people are engaged in. But if I go out for a walk and I see the UPS guy, just to kind of say thank you, or if he brings me a package to say thank you, nodding at people when I'm out, if I choose to do a short walk, if that's what you're doing, to really make sure that you maximize the smallest of the small.
Right.
And again, that's just like a personal preference to see what works for you. But I think that, yeah, challenging ourselves to make sure that we have at least some sort of interaction every day is really important.
Yes, I totally agree. And on that note, we have a comment from my uncle, a smiley face from over in New York. Hi, Uncle Jeff.
Oh, New York buddy.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I totally agree about making the most of the smallest things. We need that interaction. We need that interchange, and the smallest smile it can really take you a long way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And so right now we may be smiling across the street as we take a walk to our neighbor. I mean, not walking to our neighbor, smiling to our neighbor.
Yes.
And maybe instead of eating in the backyard, you can eat in the front yard or on a porch or something where you have an opportunity to see other people as actual three-dimensional faces rather than on a computer screen or a phone screen.
Yeah, and again, that's just based on personal preference for
Sure.
people who are not comfortable leaving the house. Even if they stand out the window and they kind of wave at whoever's driving by, there's a way. There's a way to do it because it's been a long time, and we just need to make sure that we maintain some sort of connection. We are social beings. We need connection to thrive. So it's really
Right.
important that we get it somehow.
Right. And people are more aware now of their introverted tendencies or extroverted tendencies. It
Hmm.
seems that this lockdown has really brought a lot of self-awareness in regards to personal needs when it comes to socialization. And so it's important to get in contact with yourself with that and to tap into that and know what you need. And so I
Hmm.
think that the moral of the story here is know yourself and reach out and get what you need.
Absolutely. And even you, me and you, but can be telling people, or however you say that in accurate grammar, can be telling people these are the things that are necessary for human interaction. It's really important. But if you're sitting at home watching this and saying, I actually love watching Netflix and I don't really need to talk to people every single day, you do you.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. Everyone's got their thing, and it's important to know. And I think when someone becomes a new mother, it can be a really confusing time for getting in touch with that. And what I like to do is I like to advise people, and I did this before this whole quarantine issue, but write down a list of things that recharge you so that when you have a baby, when you're tired, when you can't really tap into that as easily, you have a physical list that you can refer back to. For me, I love swing dancing. Okay, so put
Ah,
on some so put on some swing music, like, but it's different for
yeah.
everyone. And I think it's really good to have a physical list posted on your wall where you can say, hey, I am feeling really empty right now. Where's my list? What can I do to fill myself up? And it's great to have that reference because everyone is different. Everyone does need different things, but we can lose touch with that.
Yeah, I love the idea of having an actual list because when we get in those moments of like, woe is me or the world is awful, we can't come up with that.
Right, right. You're in this like spiral. And the normal anxiety that might come with motherhood. And by the way, if you're feeling very anxious, go back and look. I have nap time nutrition on postpartum anxiety. I have, I think, 3 segments on postpartum depression. This is a really big issue. But if you're feeling that, it's so important to just get in touch with what fills you up. And it's really difficult to remember when you're in the muck of it.
Yeah. And also, part of a way to kind of gauge what actually fills you up is, do I get excited about this? And afterwards, do I feel energized by it? As
Right.
opposed to, am I dreading this? And do I feel tired after it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's fantastic advice. And sometimes you're that happy tired afterward, and sometimes you're that drained tired. And so
Yeah.
it's good to identify that. I mean, like after no, I was gonna use my doing fitness Marshall videos on YouTube as my example for like a happy tired, but no, I'm energized after that anyway. So if you're into dancing, go check out the Fitness Marshall on YouTube. His videos are not only fun and engaging, but they also really showcase a variety of different body styles and abilities. And he's very into being inclusive. So it's a good way to connect with yourself if that's your thing.
Yeah. Also, something that, I mean, maybe some moms who are watching this do a lot of the interactive cooking that you do, just kind of like with, to bring their kids in the kitchen. For some people, cooking is their safe space, and to kind of
Mm-hmm.
kick everyone out of the kitchen and being like, I'm going to make something by myself. This is going to be a me time thing. If that's something that works for you, then that's what you do.
Right. And on the flip side of that, if cooking is a social thing for you, you can cook on Zoom. I did that with
Yeah.
my friend Alice. She wanted to learn how to braid challah. So we got on together and we braided challah. And I actually have an appointment this morning with Candace from Proportional Plate because I keep failing at her whipped chocolate milk recipe. So we've never actually met in real life. And she's going to give me the step-by-step instructions over FaceTime on how to not fail at this whipped chocolate milk. So that's a way to be social about it if that's your thing. So
Absolutely, yeah, and
it's just
self-care
good
is
to
kind of
know
thrown in
yourself. Yeah,
there. Mhm.
and I mean whipped chocolate milk. It's
Obviously.
yeah, it's the chocolate version of the Dalgona whipped coffee. So she did.
Oh,
So this is it's not bitter and it's much more mild. It tastes like a chocolate milkshake. But mine, every time I add the chocolate, it just deflates. So she's gonna help me with that.
oh, interesting. That's a scientific thing. I don't know any of that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's my first time using aquafaba, which is it's a new ingredient for me. It's very trendy. So
You're so cool.
I'm trying. Okay, so to sum up the conversation, before we get off on all kinds of tangents, like whipped chocolate milk, and go check out Proportional Plate on Instagram if you want more information on that. She posts some good stuff. So didn't mean to plug her, but I mean, you just gotta sometimes. So,
Oh, yeah.
so know yourself. And before you have a baby, so that you know that you remember yourself, make a list of things that recharge you and a list of people who you love who recharge you. Because you know what? There are going to be some people who don't recharge you. It's kind of like someone told me when I was planning my wedding that the people you least expect are going to cause the most trouble. And that's also, it's it was
That's
unfortunately
true.
true. It was unfortunately true in my case, but it's the same with motherhood. It's the people who are trying to help but push a little bit too hard, and they push into your boundaries, and sometimes you're too tired to push back. So on your list of things that recharge you, activities that recharge you, make a list of people who recharge you, and be sure to check in with those people. And your parents may or may not be on that list.
Yeah. Well, it's different for everybody.
It is. Yeah. And that was just an example. My parents are very helpful. Anyway, especially since my uncle's watching. So no, it was honestly, it was a very rough time for me when I became a mother. So I like to use that in order to try to help people who might have the same obstacles or similar. So anyway, list, know yourself, know what recharges you, and be sure to keep in contact with yourself through that list and with people who love you and recharge you.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. That's good advice for your normal life. That's good advice for lockdown. And if you happen to be having a baby during lockdown, this is particularly an important conversation.
Yes. Thank you for it.
Oh, well, thank you for joining me. Oh, I hope everything goes very, very well and you have the delivery that you really want.
Thank
Anyway.
you. Well, I'll keep you posted.
Didn't mean to get so personal. Anyway, okay, thank you so much for joining me, Rachelle. And it's good to see your face, even if it's through a screen.
Yes, same. Thank you for keeping me some company.
Yeah. And so where can people find you if they're looking for the kind of help that you provide?
Yeah, I do have an Instagram page. I really don't go on too often, but my handle is R Heinemann LMHC, and I have a website. And you can just kind of like Google my name, Rachelle Heinemann. I am a therapist in New York City and Brooklyn, so you just put my name in, and I'll come up.
Okay, and I am putting your name here so that people who maybe don't know how to spell it
That's
will
helpful.
be, will be able to find it. So
Exactly
this
like
is,
that.
yes, Rachelle Heinemann, Google, and you will find her. And you're in Brooklyn, and you do depression and anxiety and eating disorders. And you're just an all around good person to be in contact with if you're having any of those
Oh,
issues.
thank you.
Thank you so much for joining this Nap Time Nutrition. We're all over the place with the schedule. I mean, right now, I think it's Thursday. Anyway, keep checking back. I'm posting new videos, and I've also been transmitting the videos, taking them down from Facebook, which has limited the search function, which makes it really not easy. And I'm moving over to YouTube. So if you go on YouTube and search Naptime Nutrition, you will see an increasing amount of videos every day, and you can follow along there for new videos. So thank you so much for joining me, and see you next time.